I have been obsessed with Silksong recently. It's just such a great sequel, and it's a brilliant addition to the Hollow Knight series. And as I've been holed out from the world, diving into one of the best sequels I've played in years, it got me thinking about video game sequels in general, why some work and some don't, and what the best have in common. The first sequel ever made was Space War 1962, which was a sequel to the 1961 Space War made by Steve. No, it's not that kind of video. Today, I simply want to talk about the rules for sequels, the do's and don'ts. Now, while I mainly want to discuss the greats today, those sequels that knocked it out of the park, and the commonalities between them, let's first do a quick run through of one of the most obvious things when it comes to making a sequel. Now, that might seem obvious, but over the past decade, plenty of sequels have broken this most basic rule. Take The Force Unleashed 2, for example. Yeah, this one stung. It had everything going for it, a great first game, an audience that was ready for more, and some of the best marketing for a game I've ever seen. I mean, that first trailer for Force Unleashed 2 was amazing. Literal chills. It gave me the same goosebumps as the Battlefield 1 trailer. Truly a masterpiece. But on release, it messed it all up. The Force Unleashed 2 stripped away much of what made The Force Unleashed 1 great. The level design and gameplay were repetitive, the story was rushed, and it only takes about 4 hours to beat. That's half the length of the original, with half the content to match. Now, I'm not saying a campaign or a game has to be long to be good. Just look at Titanfall 2, an example of a great sequel we'll touch on later. But sequels like The Force Unleashed 2 that bring less to the table than the original are bound to fail, or at the very least, never reach the heights of their predecessors. Overwatch 2 and Payday 3 are other prime examples of this, each failing to bring to the table more of what made their franchise's previous titles succeed, and they both suffered because of it. So when I say the number one rule is don't fuck it up, what I mean is that for a sequel to succeed, it has to expand on what made the original game great. And that's exactly where I got this next rule from.
Wake me when you need me.
Now, this one's pretty obvious as well, which is why it's second. And it's really simple. Give the people what they want, which is more of what you started with. Portal 2 absolutely nails this. It kept the core gameplay of the original, solving physics-based puzzles with portals, virtually unchanged, while delivering more on every other front. It has better visuals, improved voice acting, new mechanics, challenging puzzles, and a story that builds on the first. Honestly, Portal 2 is a great poster child of what a good sequel is. And it's a great example of how to make a quality follow-up that understands why its first game succeeded. Now, speaking of sequels that respected their originals, Black Ops 2 and the original Modern Warfare 2 both did fantastic jobs at carrying forward what their first games started. And I know Call of Duty's in a bit of a weird place right now. It's going through some sort of existential midlife crisis, rehashing characters, pandering to the most common denominator, and overall losing its identity. But just a little over a decade ago, their sequels were succeeding because they followed this simple rule. They respected the games that came before them. Remembering why fans loved a game in the first place is probably the most important thing to making a successful sequel. And these first two rules kind of hint at that. But just as important as respecting and bringing back more of the original is knowing where to take the franchise next, expanding and building on the original game's great ideas. And that's where my next rule comes in.
I hope you're a player. Been too many cowards at these tables recently.
Honestly, I'm pretty excited for this section, as it allows me to talk about a game that I think truly deserves praise for how it doubled down on what made its original game great. Jedi Survivor. Jedi Survivor is the perfect example of how to expand on a breakout IP. It starts with significantly expanding the open world, adds so much more to Fallen Order's combat, and gets creative in all of its aspects. The developers at Respawn really pushed the limits of what made Fallen Order memorable, and in my opinion, they succeeded in all regards. I mean, right off the bat, the game starts with all of the abilities of the first already unlocked. It doesn't fall into that trap that most sequels do of making you relearn all the mechanics. Furthermore, Jedi Survivor spends its entire playthrough adding on to the past game's mechanics. The parkour gets some great additions like a grappling hook and a dash. The combat is pushed in new directions with the addition of saber stances. And the exploration of the game is made all the more exciting with massive open areas and an improved map. I mean, Jedi Survivor is truly a masterclass in expanding and doubling down on a first game's success. Arkham City is another perfect example of my third rule in action. It didn't just take what worked in Arkham Asylum and repeat it. It expanded it exponentially in all the right ways. To start, Arkham City's map is 5 times larger than Asylum's. It doesn't cut corners either. Arkham City also expands on the combat of Asylum, adding more gadgets, more enemy types, and smoother transitions in Batman's attacks and counters. Just like Jedi Survivor, Arkham City enhanced every aspect of what made the original great, resulting in a truly magnificent sequel. In a similar vein to Doubling Down, any great sequel must have its own identity. While it carries on the reputation of the first and expands on its success, a good sequel needs to raise the bar and rise above its predecessor. Put simply, it needs to start this section, let's look at a game I touched on earlier, Titanfall 2, a game that followed an already groundbreaking first game, but went above and beyond the standards it set. Titanfall 2 didn't just expand on all the current aspects of Titanfall 1. It made its own mark on the franchise by creating one of the best single-player campaigns ever. That might just be my opinion, but I think it's fantastic. Titanfall 2 evolved the franchise, taking it in a whole new direction that left everyone craving more even a decade after its release. Just like Titanfall 2, Red Dead 2 does a fantastic job of progressing its franchise while carving out its own unique identity. It not only surpassed every standard set by the first game, it raised the bar for Rockstar itself. And while games like Titanfall 2 and Red Dead 2 clearly evolved and carved out their own identity, not every sequel manages to do it right. Look at Back 4 Blood, a game that attempted to build on the beloved Left 4 Dead formula, adding card-based mechanics and new player abilities. Clearly, it was trying to evolve, but it changed too much. It lost sight of what made the original great, it broke the first 2 rules, and suffered because of it. Now, of course, these rules aren't official. I just looked at some of the greatest sequels out there and tried to pinpoint what they all had in common. And I think what I ended up with is a pretty solid checklist. And it absolutely applies to my current obsession, Silksong, and why it's been a success. Silksong delivers way more of what made Hollow Knight great. So that's rule 1 taken care of. It brings back all the core elements fans loved. So rule 2 checks out. It doubles down with new movement abilities, hundreds of new enemies, tons of boss fights, and a truly massive world to explore. And finally, even with all the similarities it has to Hollow Knight, Silksong still manages to carve out its own identity. The addition of a toolkit, crest selection, new currency, and a straightforward narrative all bring something to the table that makes Silksong unique in a way that ties in well with the original, but creates a new identity. Now, of course, as with any video in gaming, I'm sure there's some stuff I missed. I know there are tons of examples of other great and not so great sequels out there. There's some that, I wanted to mention, but didn't flow quite right with the script. So I just picked some of my favorites. But I would love to hear from y'all on the titles that y'all thought made great sequels, or the ones you think missed the mark. So get in the comments with your thoughts. I always love hearing about the games y'all enjoy. Also, quick apologies for the upload gap. Apart from my Silksong obsession, life in general has gotten a bit busier than expected, and I've recently been taking some time off to decide where to take this channel going forward. But I promise I'm gonna keep creating, and I'm coming up with solutions on how to make sure my content gets the time it deserves. So stay tuned. Oh, and one last thing. I'm gonna try hopping back into streaming. Gonna be streaming some Silksong and some other games soon, so make sure you subscribe or join the Discord to get notifications on when I'm live. As always, thank you so much for watching. The support is much appreciated. And if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like or even subscribing. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.